Hey everybody, so something I've been thinking about a bit lately is the conflation we make in discourse about media between getting something and enjoying that thing. So recently I made a video talking about how I find the scene in Oppenheimer where he, in the middle of sex, quotes the "I am death, destroyers of worlds" section of the Bhagavad Gita to a woman who prompted him to quote this for no apparent reason. And one thing I saw a few people saying was, you just don't get the meaning of this scene. And I'll just paint you a picture of that argument, one that isn't quoting any given comment. This scene is interesting for a few reasons. First, it draws a connection between small deaths and big deaths. The woman Oppenheimer is sleeping with here will go on to kill herself, die just as the victims of the atomic bomb died. So this scene not only foreshadows Oppenheimer's most famous quote in an interview after the bomb was dropped, but also foreshadows the ruinous destiny of the people in his personal life. Second, you can make an argument that it's thematically important. A central theme in Oppenheimer's story is a lack of clarity on his politics. Does he support the bomb or doesn't he? Is he a communist or isn't he? Likewise, Oppenheimer isn't able to commit to this woman, to give her real love. And the result of both of these failures to commit are death and destruction. Third, you could say it's a moment meant to demonize Oppie. He literally associates the bomb going off with his little orgasm moment, right? And fourth, and this is probably the most solid point, you can argue that this moment humanizes Oppenheimer. And here, you can see a kind of meta point going on. We want to see Oppenheimer as this big, important man, the man who said, "I am become death, destroyer of worlds," a mythological figure. But this scene conceptualizes it as smaller, more crude. His far-flung feelings about the atomic bomb later in the film are in fact much smaller than they seem. They come from this relationship he had years ago. And so, the film tells us, at the earliest possible moment, this is not the story of an icon, but of a man. Now, I like Oppenheimer. It's probably the second or third best film I've seen from Nolan, and I do enjoy these interpretations. But I feel there's always an assumption among media discourse people that if you don't like something, and if that thing has some depth to it, it must mean you didn't get it, that you didn't understand what was going on. But here's the thing, that's not true. Sometimes you don't like a thing, not because you can't access its inner depth, but because that hidden depth doesn't make the scene good for you. So I guess I'll explain why I don't like it. If there's one problem I have with Oppenheimer, is that it sometimes feels too direct to me, too heavy-handed. At various points in the movie, it feels like Nolan was desperate to get characters to say interesting historical tidbits that don't feel at home or natural in the mouths of the characters. The most talked about example of this is, of course, where two guys mention JFK, and it feels like they're winking to the audience. And this scene at the beginning is, I think, just the most egregious case. Oppenheimer presents itself as a movie that is deeply invested in Oppenheimer's subjectivity, the way he sees the world and the thoughts he has on it. This is so much the case that parts of the film meant to access this subjectivity are placed in color, while the rest is in black and white. So much the case that the script was written in the first person. We are fucking hot, sweaty, a little brutal. Tatlock gives up, climbs off of me. Wait. I catch my breath, watching her study my shelves. Unexpected. What? For a physicist, you've only got a shelf full of Freud? Actually, my background's more Jungian. Analysis? It's so fucking hammy. And yet, in this scene, one that takes place in the first act, we see something that feels so obviously directed at the audience, that is only written that way because of our memory of Oppenheimer, his famous Oppenheimer one-liner. Seeing this woman, during sex, completely unprompted, get Oppenheimer to say this line feels so contrived that it genuinely feels like fan service to me. In my opinion, this choice is not justified through some analysis of how his relationship to this woman is like the bomb, how his sexuality plays into the movie's themes, how we should understand Robert as a person, not an icon. I think there were probably better, less groan-worthy ways of expressing each of these ideas, ways that don't feel so kitsch, so out of place in the movie, so inappropriately fourth wall breaking. So, Yeah, Oppenheimer is a good movie, one that does express these ideas, that plays with a kind of historical meta-commentary, and that explores the humanity of its main subject. And somewhat ironically, I guess, my problem with this scene is not that it's too hard to understand thematically, it's that it's just way overplayed, way too on the nose. It's a moment that, for me, is crying out for even a hint of restraint. So here's the message I want to say. Interpretation is not a review. Finding depth in a movie is not the same as thinking it's a very good moment or that it's well crafted. Movies are more than the ideas they communicate, and that's a good thing. That makes talking about liking movies fun. Thank you for your time.